US and European share markets slipped further over the weekend. The usual suspects, Eurozone debt worries and the fear of a global economic slowdown, were responsible for the weakness. On Friday, New Zealand's share market held up remarkably well, falling just over 0.5%. To talk about the outlook for markets this week, I'm joined by business editor Michael Wilson. Morning, Michael.
Hi, Rachel.
New Zealand corporate profits have been looking pretty strong. Is that helping, if you like, to shore up our share market?
Yeah, it sure has. We dropped just 0.5% on the Friday, and that was after really big falls of 4-5% in Europe and around 3.5% in the US. Now, over the weekend, the US has dropped another 1.5%, I think it was, for the Dow, and the European markets are off a similar 1 to 2%. So the weakness is continuing. Now, we held up on Friday really because the likes of Fletcher Building, Sky City, Michael Hill, Porta Tauranga, even Telecom, they all had pretty good profit results, mostly recording gains in profit in what's a difficult environment. The Telecom one was a tricky one because on the surface it looked extremely bad. The net profit was down 50%, but they had some big write-offs because of the fact they've got to split the company into two to come up to scratch for this ultra-fast broadband government initiative. So the underlying profit, though, was up slightly. So even Telecom, which has been a bit of a laggard these days, had a reasonable result, and that has supported the New Zealand stock market because our corporates are doing okay.
How does that compare then in the US? How are the American corporates doing?
It's the odd thing. It's a similar story in the US that most of their companies are doing extremely well, and they've got huge reserves. The likes of Apple and so on, their profits just going up every quarter, and Google. Now, there was one interesting development over the weekend, though, that Hewlett-Packard, the big computer company, they actually declared a pretty good quarterly result, meeting expectations, but their forecast for the next quarter was not so great, and they got hammered. The share price dropped 20%, which for a big company like that is a huge sell-off. And that just shows how nervous the investors are about future profits, and that idea that is the US going into a double-dip recession, and will that therefore affect corporate profits? Dell, another computer company, had a similar impact on its share price when they also said our revenues may not be quite so good the next quarter. So yeah, they're very edgy, and any sign of profitability dipping a bit sees them hammered.
We saw Standard & Poor's downgrade the US a few weeks ago. Are they still the only agency to issue a downgrade?
Yes, they are. Now, Fitch, there are three key agencies, Fitch, Moody's and Standard & Poor's. Fitch came out last week, and on Tuesday I think it was, and said we are completely happy with a AAA rating. They talked about the US as being not in fine fettle, but certainly deserving its status as a AAA nation, in massive contrast to what Standard & Poor's said. Now, Moody's has said nothing, I don't think, but they are still maintaining their AAA rating. So there's a bit of divergence there. And S&P is really under pressure at the moment. The Department of Justice is looking at taking a case against them for their pathetic performance during the subprime crisis. They gave all these subprime shonksters AAA ratings and in a sense helped develop the global financial crisis. So that'll be a very interesting development, the Department of Justice pursuing Standard & Poor's.
Yes, and in this environment, how's the old New Zealand dollar doing?
Well, the old New Zealand dollar, it's reasonably stable. Remember, it went up to that post-float high of 88, around 88.5, yes. Then it dipped sharply down to around 79. It's hovering. This morning it's around 82, so it's holding up reasonably well, and against the other currencies, against the Aussie, we're just under the 80-cent mark, around 79 cents. And against the UK pound, some people will be interested out there. Finally, it's gone below 50p. So we have come off a bit against the pound, from 53 down, I think we're around 49 at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Michael Wilson, our business editor. Thanks for your time this morning.